God took me for.
I no longer think that the most important thing is to have all the answers. Perhaps the most important thing is to figure out the questions that we should be raising. The African presence in Asia, and of course here's my book on the subject. I've written, let's see, I have 2 books in French on the African presence in Asia and 5 in English now. And this is the most recent one, and this is probably the best one. African Star of Asia, the Black Presence in the East. So let's just look at some of the images. This one, for example, is in the Louvre. This is the figure called Gudea, the most powerful figure of the civilization called the Sumerian civilization. In the Tigris Euphrates, interesting that the nose is broken off or missing at any rate. And also the interesting hairpiece or crown. The Sumerians call themselves the black-headed people. Another one of Gudea, this is about 4,000 years old, 4,100 years old. From ancient Iran. And this is right here in the British Museum. This is a figure, I believe it's actually Phoenician, and it's in a place called, it's in what is called the Nimrud Ivories, but it looks like it's purely straight out of the Nile Valley. This was a time when Egypt was a dominant cultural influence in this part of the world. This is from a place called Lachish. This is the Assyrian capture and sack of the Judean city of Lachish. Detailed, this is one of the figures from there. This is also in the British Museum. If you come on the tour tomorrow, you'll see it. Here's the tomb of Bilal in Syria. I don't even know if it's there now, considering all the turmoil there. But Bilal was the first muezzin, the first person to climb into the minaret and call the faithful to prayer. And this is in the 7th century. He's so pious, he's referred to as a third of the faith. The Prophet Muhammad, who himself is said to have had African lineage, is supposed to have told Bilal once, Bilal, last night I dreamed that I went to paradise and I found that you had been there before me. Right? That's quite a powerful statement. And in the early history of Arabia, you find figures like Antar ibn Shaddad, who was the father of chivalry, a dashing knight and poet, before King Arthur, before Richard the Lionheart, who weren't really very chivalrous in actuality. His mother was an Ethiopian, his father was an Arab. He led troops into battle. And then this is also, and again in the British Museum, and this photograph I believe is in the book, either the one on Europe or the one on Asia. And this is an Ethiopian soldier in the Persian army fighting the Greeks. This is around 2,500 years old. Of course, this takes us to South Asia. And this is from ancient Pakistan. And this is a sister for sure. Just look at that hand on her hip. This is 4,000 years old. It's now in a vault in the National Museum in New Delhi, India. It's only 3 or 4 inches high. I've actually seen a replica of it that they put on display. An image of the Buddha as a youth. And this is from the Ajanta caves in Western India. And this is just one photograph of, I'm sure, what the people who built those ancient civilizations actually look like. And this sister, you could see, is from a very downtrodden community from ancient Afghanistan, 2,000 years old. And this image takes us to Southeast Asia. This is Angkor Wat in Siem Reap, Cambodia. Angkor. This is one of the faces of the Bayon Temple in Cambodia. This is my favorite temple in the world. I like it even more than the ones in Egypt. I'm going to climb it again, God willing, in January. I need to lose a few kilos. These are apsaras from Southeast Asia. kind of like Buddhist versions of angels. Another face from the Bayon Temple in Cambodia. Are you all following me? Okay. You know, sometimes when you do these presentations and you do them so long, you just kind of take for granted that people know what you're talking about. And you know, you say, well, maybe everybody doesn't know where these places are. And you kind of have to stop. I don't mean any disrespect. I just want to make sure we're all understanding each other. This is from Cambodia. This is about 800 years old. This is the cover of my first book in French on the African presence in Asia. And that face right there is part of the entrance to the great city of Angkor Thom. Not Uncle Tom, but Angkor Thom. Thailand, from the part of Thai history called the Devarati period. The Devarati phase in Thai history.
Are these Buddhas?
Yes. Buddhas, and I guess you could say Bodhisattvas. Now this is from another phase in Thai history. This is a photograph I took in a museum in Paris called the Musée of Met. An image of Shiva from Vietnam. I think I showed that one earlier if I'm not mistaken. Let's go to China. I believe this one is from the Tang Dynasty in central China. And this one as well. This is in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. Here. Painted black. I've seen, I think, 3 of these now. There's one in the British Museum. There's one in the Sackler Gallery in Washington, D.C. And sometimes they are described as acrobats. And this is from the Tang Dynasty. They all have very tightly curled hair, generally painted black, and quite often have their fist in the air like that. This is from the Tang Dynasty, the classical period in Chinese literature and art. From the Yuan Dynasty in China. And I don't know if Darren showed me this or one of your colleagues. We had a flyer with this we used on there 2 or 3 years ago. And it's beautiful, and I'm going to show you a companion piece. Also from the Yuan Dynasty, this is the Mongol Dynasty, done by Kublai Khan. This is in a museum in San Francisco, but it's not on display. And this is Bodhidharma, who supposedly took martial arts from India to the Far East. This is also in the Victoria and Albert Museum. This is my own photograph. And here's the other one. I think that these 2 pieces are companion pieces. And these are details of a painting, a Chinese scroll, I think from the 14th century. And these are in a museum, as I understand it, in Taipei. And I'm thinking that next year or the year after that, I'm going to do a special trip to China in order to see these, or at least go to Taipei, Taiwan. Here's one of many images of Fudo-Mayo, one of the 5 wisdom kings in Japanese mythology, a patron of the samurai. And there are 2 proverbs that have been used to suggest an African presence or black presence. One is, for a samurai to be brave, he must have a bit of black blood. And the other one goes, to make a good samurai, half the blood in one's veins must be black. Uh-oh. My bad. This one takes us to China, and this is, or actually takes us to Paris, which is where this piece is, which is called a Tigris. It's a bronze libation vessel called a U vessel of an ornately carved tiger made of bronze from the Shang Dynasty in China, protecting a little black man. Now, when we first started to show this picture way back in the 1980s, we thought it was a black child. But the more that I've examined it, that's a little black man there. And I think that he represents what the Chinese perceive as the first people of China. Now this is in the Chanucci Museum in Paris, and here's a close-up of it. This, I think I took from a postcard, and this is my own picture right here. You can see a detail. Yes, let me see. I think there's one more that I wanted to show of that. I've gone through Asia fairly quickly. I have to make up for that tomorrow. All right. There's a companion piece. But we'll move on. I thought this was the companion piece right here, because there's another one. I found another one of these in Japan. In fact, let's just look and see. Is this the same one as this one? Let's look at the facial expression. No, they are different. This one looks kind of like, you know, more belligerent, like the evil twin of this one right here. So this is the one in Paris, and this is the one in the Sumitomo collection in Kyoto, Japan. And this is another place that I hope to be able to see. I've been to Japan a couple of times and even lectured there a couple of times, but I haven't been to Kyoto. So you can see their companions, and I think these are the only two that I know of in existence. It must have been the property of a very wealthy person to have these. It's bronze. Let's look at Europe and let's look at the Americas, and we'll call it a night. Here's the cover of the book, The African Star in Early Europe. Robin Walker wrote the preface to it. And this looks at the African, what I'll look at now is the African images from the great civilizations of Europe. For example, this is a shell inlay at Oxford University, the Ashmolean Museum. This is about 3,700 years old. This is from the island of Crete. And also at Oxford is image of Andromeda, painted black with blonde hair. Andromeda in Greek mythology was described as an Ethiopian princess. Her mother and father were the king and queen of Ethiopia. Now, Ethiopia today is not the Ethiopia of ancient times. The word Ethiopia means the land of the burnt-faced people. And it was a word that was introduced by the Greeks, in fact, and also used by the Romans. And it was a term that was applied to much of Africa beyond Egypt. The Greeks and Romans, or Greek and Roman scholars, went to Egypt, spent considerable time there, but for the most part, they were not able to explore Africa outside of Egypt, or what we now call Africa. And according to the Greeks, Andromeda was an Ethiopian princess, and she married the man named Perseus in Greek mythology of the historical country of Persia. And of course, in Greek mythology, Perseus was the man who slew the Medusa, the Gorgon. This, I think, is about 500 BC.
To see more videos like this, subscribe to Titans TV down below. Thanks.
To watch the full DVD, contact Runoko Rashidi via his website, runokorashidi.com, or via Facebook, Runoko Rashidi.